where you scream to watch this, and I'll dive down through this hairy flesh.
Hi and welcome to Watch This. I'm CJ Johnson. Thank you for joining me. What is fame and why do we want it? I reckon the answer to that question has changed over the years, over the millennia even. You know, the ancient Romans wanted fame so that their names would be written in the history books. Caesar wanted the fame of his name throughout the centuries. And now people want to be famous on Instagram or for 6 seconds on the now defunct Vine, you name it. People seem to want fame for the sake of fame, or do they or don't they? Is that going out of fashion? Is it still happening? I don't know the answer to all these questions. It's all moving too fast. But someone who has investigated these things quite methodically is David Elliott-Jones. He decided to investigate what it would mean to become big in Japan. His friends went along and filmed him doing it. The resulting documentary, feature-length documentary, is called Big in Japan. It's about to get a release at your local cinema screen. We'll let you know how that is possible later on in the program. He's joined me on Watch This to talk all about it. Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you? Thanks
Great.
for having me.
You're very welcome.
The mission is to make this boy here famous. It's not going to be easy, because this is what we've got to work with.
I'm up for doing something, anything.
How about moving to Japan?
I want to become famous in Japan.
So I loved your feature-length documentary, Big in Japan. I think it's very, very entertaining. So
Thank
it's
you.
about this concept of becoming big in Japan. And the idea was that you decided to become big in Japan as kind of a social experiment. And your friends would make this film of you going to Japan and trying to become big in Japan. And then it evolved from there. Is this sort of how it was?
That's how it works. So after our first project working together, which was Broadcast Doco, we decided this issue about fame and how it had changed over the years was pretty relevant to us and to people around us. We'd seen the nature of fame completely transform in our generation with reality TV and with YouTube becoming such a fixture of everyday life. We thought, why not test this in the most entertaining way possible by trying to get an ordinary person, i.e. me, famous in Japan of all places.
And so what were your first steps?
First steps were trying to get a job in Japan. So I ended up doing what most foreigners do in Japan and teaching English.
Yeah.
So we got our jobs, we moved to Japan, and then soon enough I signed up to a foreign talent agency.
So let's put it into context. This is you and two of your friends. They are
Lachlan and Lewis. They're my university mates. So we've known each other for about 10 years, and we've been making films together. Before Big in Japan, we'd been working as a unit for about 3 years. So we decided to take the plunge together on this pretty crazy adventure, I suppose.
And did you have the feature-length documentary format in mind? Did you know what you were intending to make when you left?
Yeah, that was always our goal. We always wanted to make a feature-length film. I think having made the broadcast documentary previously, that was what we wanted to do next. We'd always, I mean, it was always a professional goal of ours to get something long form and completely our own. And so we went to Japan with the intention of capturing this development through my investigation over 2 years. So we were going there with the intention of spending a long time on this experiment.
So you gave yourselves 2 years to go. And so you then tried to basically get a talent agency, and what you kind of discovered is that it wasn't really about talent, it was about being foreign.
Yeah, being an image. And so I was a nerd, and because I was a foreign nerd, that made me quite a unique nerd, and I found I was able to get quite a lot of work because of that.
An agency kind of welcomed you onto their books immediately, didn't they?
With no showbiz experience at all, never done any acting. I'm quite untalented. I can't sing. I can't do anything much.
So, I thought this was over, actually. And so when your documentary, came across my desk, as it were, my computer screen, the media release, I was really surprised because I thought this whole concept of being able to become famous in Japan purely by not being Japanese was something left behind in the 90s. It kind of shocked me that it was still around because I suppose I assumed that globalization would have made such a concept redundant, and yet not at all. What is it about, what could you find among sort of the young Japanese population, because obviously you're talking about appealing to the younger population, that still finds non-Japanese people so exotic?
Well, I think it's driven by the commercial world in Japan, and I think there's this sense that if a foreigner is using that product or is wearing that thing, then that's somehow it's something worth paying attention to, because if you think about Japanese society, it's still very much a homogenous culture, and so foreigners are pretty rare. I guess that's why it's still possible for people like me to come over and star in ads and get on television, just for the fact of being foreign. But I should say as well, it's not quite as common as it used to be. Yeah, there is now a move towards, I guess, the online space, and you're seeing that TV, Gaijin Torrento, foreign celebrity phenomenon, sort of in a decline at the moment. But to counter that, you're getting a lot of young people coming to Japan because they think it's really cool and creating fame for themselves online.
Right. So in the first part of the movie, it is sort of the journey of you getting your agent and actually achieving some pretty quick fame, because you instantly started getting on ads and you were kind of the nerdy foreign guy. And
That's right.
We see you sort of look at yourself in the subway and look at yourself on television screens and everything. How was that for you?
That was really uncanny. It didn't feel very real. And it was a bit of a buzz, I have to say, even though I wasn't doing anything special. It was like, wow, I feel like I've achieved something. And maybe it was the investigator in me, or maybe it was something else.
And you also, because of this element of fame, this sort of like I'm on ads, you got movie auditions, and we see you actually acting in a movie and trying to do a scene in a movie, and you're basically doing a terrible job.
Yeah.
What was it about that? Did they think that your recognizability from these ads was an asset worth having in their movie, or did they feel like they'd made a mistake, or, how did that day end, as it were?
Well, I think they quickly realized that I wasn't quite as good as an actor as they might have thought when they enlisted my acting services. In a sense, they weren't too worried about whether I had great acting skills or not, because I was playing just a small part. And in that context, I think it's more about just the image of the foreigner and how close that is to the character. So maybe if it was a Japanese person, there would be more screening involved. But I guess when you're a foreigner, there's not a whole lot to choose from. So that works in my favor.
I mean, I got the sense from that scene, watching that scene, that kind of what that scene, you trying to act that scene, that dramatic scene, would be that any, for example, NIDA-trained actor or Victorian College of the Arts trained actor who was finding it tough to get a gig in Australia should just go there straight away, should drop everything and go there straight away, because if you can actually act, then, it seems like, the real jobs should be available to you, but maybe there aren't that many. Or,
yeah.
Like, what's the story there in terms of, would you actually find that you'd only be getting these tiny roles and that they'd be insignificant, or is the money not particularly great? Is there a reason that all our actors aren't just flocking there?
Yeah, I think you're somewhat pigeonholed as a foreign actor in Japan. It's really hard to get beyond the ads. You might be earning a lot of money actually by appearing in lots of ads, and you might get to a level that is fairly good in terms of money and exposure commercially, but it's really hard to actually get those sort of affirming roles that a lot of actors might go for.
Right. So you had this sort of run on commercials, and you were very much sort of playing a version of yourself. You were wearing your own glasses, or it looked like you were being that nerd. Yeah?
Yes.
But then it felt like the system ate you up and spat you out. Like
Yeah.
you came up on a dry run.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because you were overexposed, or do you think because like the company you were shilling for had sort of captured your essence already?
It's hard to know, but I would say that I was probably quite lucky in a lot of ways getting those early gigs, and it must be difficult for anyone, like it is anyone freelancing in any job. I think you have to, like, even though you might get a couple of really good jobs, you have to work hard to maintain it. So at that point, we were getting frustrated because we had this fame experiment, and a whole documentary hinged on me becoming more famous. So at that point, we had to look and try to, I guess, play the game ourselves and to see what we could create for ourselves, because we couldn't rely on television.
You did expand a little bit and looked at essentially 3 other different subjects, people who'd gone to Japan from around the world to try and become big in Japan. None of them traditional actors. You've got a large American man who was sort of a wrestler / fighter / rapper kind of performer. You've got a guy named Ladybeard, who we'll get to in a minute. And there was a young woman who I, for the life of me, could not figure out where in the world she was from. Her accent did not tell me, because she sounded to me like perhaps she was European who had learnt English from an American person. Where was she actually from?
Canada.
Okay, she was Canadian, yep.
In Japan, I do everything. You name it, Bob Sapp's doing it.
I want to be kind of like Britney Spears. Everybody knows who she is.
Japan's the place, man. They like cross-dressers, they like muscular, hairy men. It's out of control.
Kelsey fascinated me because her look, and by look I mean very intimately and intricately, her eyes, her face, her haircut, the way she spoke, and perhaps that's why I found it hard to pinpoint her accent, because the way she spoke, she looked and came across as I would imagine the perfect example of what the Japanese market was looking for in a cute white woman. She looked like an anime character, those big beautiful eyes and her soft voice and her cute demeanor. And I guess because she'd been growing up admiring this stuff, somehow by the time she got there, or once she got there, she was able to morph into this ideal. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of girls like Kelsey in this unique sort of subculture on the internet as aspiring idol subculture. It's really fascinating. And I think that she had been watching these idol videos her whole time growing up in Canada, and from quite a young age had decided that that's what she wanted to do. And now it's interesting, because of those videos that existed on the internet 5 years ago, you're seeing a new generation of young girls from all over the world flocking to Japan and now actually making it as J-pop idols.
Yes, it would be a difficult thing to be anywhere other than Japan, because it's not a particularly politically correct form of fame, is it? To aspire to be this kind of essentially idealized version of a girl through a male gaze, in a way.
Yeah, it's quite a weird thing and quite, I guess, unsettling for a lot of people to think about. But in Japan, it's such an ordinary thing, and it's seen as somehow being something quite innocent. It's almost like the dark side of that type of celebrity is swept under the carpet, even though it's so obvious what's going on. Like it's really bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it for people like Kelsey, she sees it as something that she really wants to become. She idolized these girls from a very young age, and so she sees these sacrifices as being necessary on her preferred route towards fame. It's a strange sort of fan culture in Japan. You get it's almost like the image is more important than anything else. It's not so much a real connection. It's the land of the Yurikara as well. Have you heard of the Yurikara?
No.
Basically, each region has this character. Basically, like it could be like a piece of bread, like the Anpan Man or something like that, or it could be like a fruit that represents a region, and it's seen as being really cute. And each of these characters have their own fan bases. In the same way, idols have their own like troupe of fans who really, really passionately support them, and that is the lifeblood of the idol economy, essentially. Like they come to every show and buy as much merchandise as they can, and for a small group, that's what sustains it, and that's what if they have those passionate supporters, they've got a chance of reaching the mainstream. So yeah, for Kelsey, I think it's important. It's seen as part of the job almost to attract more of these passionate fans.
Right.
It's not really seen in the crude sense of something sexual or to do with attraction, even though that is certainly a component, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Sort of vaguely in the second half of the film, you turned your focus a little more to YouTube fame and YouTube culture, but still staying in Japan, specifically those people trying to become foreign celebrities using YouTube in Japan.
Yeah.
And that's where we meet Ladybeard.
Yep, Ladybeard is a cross-dressing, heavy metal singing wrestler from Adelaide who started his career in Hong Kong, realized there was a huge market for his character in Japan and relocated there and has never looked back.
We say his career, and he does. He totally has a career, but it is a very unique career. It's his career, and the way he performs is just jaw-droppingly unique. He's created this absurd blend that has made him a celebrity, and he really is an example of someone who there's no roadmap there, you know.
Yeah.
If acting, you know, you can act in Shakespeare or try and get some ads on television or roll in Home and Away, or if you're going to be a circus performer, you know, or even if you're going to be a wrestler, but he's done something else entirely.
Absolutely.
Including constructing this look of a beard combined with cross-dressing.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really he is a sight to behold, and he completely owns his act. But he's completely carved out this role for himself. He's if you go to a Ladybeard show, you'll see wrestling involved. You'll see these kawaii, which is cute, sort of J-pop songs, but completely like morphing into this heavy metal explosion of headbanging hits. It's completely bonkers, and it's amazing that he's been able to do so well to create, like, I guess to sustain fame at that level. in Japan, there's definitely a market for it. And I think I would put it down to his collaboration with someone else who is really in touch with, I guess, how to market to kawaii and people who appreciate kawaii and, I guess, the Twitter audience of Japan.
Right. So you decided you should try this avenue, and you came up with your own character, who was
Onigiri Man.
a piece of sushi,
Yeah.
dressed up, obviously with a very phallic head. This was your character, and obviously the phallic head and the whatever you call this thing, the thong.
The fundoshi.
The fundoshi. So this was kind of an exercise in self-humiliation. That was sort of where the character was, that anytime you were in public, you were essentially debasing yourself?
That's right. And the reason for that was mostly to explore how fame is changing.
This is desperation to get famous. This is what this is.
Oh my god!
It's bringing him to that line that he's set for himself, then pushing him over it.
Dave, go back! No! Dave.
While I might be wandering around half naked as an onigiri, type of sushi, it's not even half of what people do on the internet. And so we were taking inspiration from these wacky YouTube videos and kind of wondering, what does that feel like? If I get famous doing this, am I going to feel good about that, or is it just going to feel purely humiliating? And that was our way of exploring, I guess, what fame means now. And because some people do seek fame just for the sake of becoming famous, this type of fame in which I'm wandering around and making YouTube videos is not getting me money. It's not doing my reputation any good. So it's interesting why people do it. So that was.
Is it necessary to become a YouTube star there for the Japanese audience to be there because you need to support it with live appearances? I mean, obviously that's something that Ladybeard does, and it's obviously something that you were doing dressed up as a piece of sushi because you were constantly going out and standing around in public.
Yeah, I think the public appearances really reinforce the online effort because people instantly, you're a walking ad essentially.
Yeah.
You're like, people instantly, it's like, what is that guy? Onigiri Man. He looks like an onigiri and a man, and they'll Google it and they'll find my videos. And so that's exactly what Ladybeard was doing as well. He had two sort of components to his fame building, and it was a real grassroots effort. They would take photos, which ended up being essentially the currency of their social media. He was collaborating with a professional photographer of cross-dressers who gave up her career to become his manager. And so there were these photos, and then there were the public appearances. And the public appearances got that hype and conversation happening online. And that showed me that exactly how it was done. These days you can build fame online if you take a grassroots approach to it.
He, the guy behind Ladybeard, becomes very honest at one moment with you and talks about why he feels he needed to not only become Ladybeard, but why he felt he needed to become big in Japan. And it's an incredible moment. It's kind of like the whole film's climax in a way, because he's revealing something about the nature of why people want fame. Did you feel at that moment while you were there that, oh my gosh, this is kind of what we've been striving for?
Yeah. I mean, it was a really sad moment, but it was also like, we've got it. That's exactly it. That's why we're doing this whole documentary in a sense. Like it was revealing fame to be an aspect, the yearning for fame as being an aspect of human nature, an extension of something that is part of everyone's psychology.
Did you yearn for it before this?
I don't think I yearned for it.
Well, that's interesting because it feels like, you buzz around trying different things, which is all very entertaining. You become in the ads and then you become the piece of sushi. But he then provides this incredible, heartfelt, heartbreaking sort of emotional catharsis of why he needed to become big in Japan. And because he did yearn for it, you actually needed to find him to find the answer.
That's right.
That your film poses the question to.
That's right. And I think I definitely understood it by doing all of these things. And once I got a taste of it, I think I did want a little bit more, and I could understand why people would want it. But it was completed by the conclusions that we drew from other people who had always wanted fame.
So the film is great. I love it. You've got it now. You've got this wonderful documentary. You can screen it. People can see it. Blah blah. You can sell it. It's fabulous. But in terms of your time over there making it with your buddies, with your girlfriends, with what you experienced, how did that experience affect you? Because there were times walking around as Onigiri Man. You did not look happy. You looked humiliated. Like, I wouldn't want to walk around. I'm older than you, but I would not walk around wearing that outfit in the middle of Pitt Street.
Yeah.
It looked difficult.
It was hard. It never got easier. I tell you what, like, I thought it would get easier, but
when does that become easy?
It's just, you're like you've gone through the exposure. You know what's ahead of you.
Yeah.
And I thought that at least it would be like a little bit normalized and part of the routine, almost like you're doing a job you don't really want to do.
Yeah.
But it never did get easier. So yeah, it was pretty scary at times, and that was probably what made it right, in a sense, because if I was confident and willing to do this, it wouldn't so much comment on, I guess, what that type of fame would feel like, because I would be immune to that thought. So part of it was that it was so difficult, and I'm able to comment on that as well as I can comment on like how great it feels sometimes as well. So yeah, it was really hard. But what was also really hard was just how much of a financial struggle it all became, and like we were just working part-time hours and making these YouTube videos in Japan, which we took very seriously, and we invested a lot of time and money into. So that was probably almost on par with the Onigiri Man appearances, the challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels good to just be liked, like, by strangers.
I sort of need to get famous because I'm never going to feel worthwhile if I don't.
There are things you have to sacrifice, like relationships.
I just don't want to do it anymore.
They no longer see me as a human being.
All three of your subjects, they do feel quite isolated. They do feel like they're very much loners in a strange land doing this by themselves.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the process of fame building as well. Once you get to a certain level of fame, you don't really necessarily know who your friends are, or you only trust a smaller amount of people. So it's quite ironic. You become known by all of these people, but your circle actually contracts.
Right.
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, but it's also like I also don't like feel bad for them either, because they've chosen that. You know, like, and there are definitely pros and cons. I feel like it's sort of like popular to totally slam fame seeking, but a lot of people are out there doing it, and I think if we're real, there are definitely some perks that we don't like to talk about.
Right. Well, I love the film, as I said, and it is becoming available in early January. How can people see it?
So Big in Japan is releasing in cinemas in January, and anyone can see it in their local cinema by requesting it via FanForce. It's kind of a new way of doing things.
So this is fanforce.com?
Fanforce.com.
And you're also doing a tour.
Yes, we're doing a tour. We're stopping by Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth. It's called the Big in Japan Oz Tour, and it has 6 Q&A screenings and 3 Ladybeard live shows.
So you'll screen the film and Ladybeard will do a variant or his act?
That's right. We're bringing back Ladybeard to Australia for his first ever tour. So we're pretty excited about that.
Wow. I would imagine he's feeling a little nervous about that because it's a different audience for his act here.
It's a completely different audience for him. So, but it's also been something that Ladybeard's wanted to do like for a long time. It's sort of like a real moment for him to be accepted by his local audience. So I'm pretty excited for Ladybeard for that. And it's really cool because it kind of like syncs in with the documentary a little bit.
Totally.
Like, yeah.
In fact, you've got to film all of this too for the sequel.
Yeah,
for the
maybe.
extended cut for when it comes out on digital.
We should definitely bring a camera along.
Yeah. You can see Big in Japan around Australia in January. Go to biginjapandoc.com. That's biginjapandoc.com/screenings to find out the screenings with Ladybeard. And also go to fanforce.com where you can request the film be screened at your local cinema. David Elliott-Jones is the subject of Big in Japan. He'll be at those screenings and he's joined me on Watch This. Have a fantastic new year, David, and enjoy the screenings.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.